Who here already developed using publicWidgets? Okay, not so much. And who already developed with Odoo? Okay, nice, a bit more. So, I'm here to tell you that we have refactored the way publicWidgets work, and this is called interactions. And I'm Robin. I've been working in the website builder team, R&D team for the past 3 years. In the past year, we've been refactoring the publicWidgets into interactions. And so I'm going to take you by the hand to help you write your own interactions and to, let you do your custom JavaScript within the framework of the website. If you have questions, you can scan the QR code that is on the screen. And we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the talk. Now, what is an interaction? As I said, it's a replacement for publicWidgets, which is available in version 19. It's a base class, ES6 class, that you can extend to do your own interactions. And it relies on a very lightweight framework. Even calling it a framework might be a bit much, that we called Colibri, which means hummingbird in French, because apparently we like birds at Odoo. And the idea is to be able to inject dynamic content into your page, to have a similar syntax to OL. So, we'll see that in a bit, but without using OL. So mostly we try not to have to import OL. It's still not totally the case now, so we still have to import OL to be able to use interactions for now, but we're planning in reducing and removing that dependency. And it uses a basic lifecycle that is similar to OL too, so with a setup, a will start method, start and a destroy. Again, I will explain a bit more into details later. We have built-in methods within the interaction that you can call to account for the life cycle of your interaction. Typically, you can call a built-in method that will add an event listener, but that will also automatically remove the event listener without you having to remember to remove it in the destroy method of your interaction. It is integrated with the website builder that also went through a total revamp in the last year. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to go into more detail about that, but if you have questions afterwards, you can come talk to me or the team at the website booth. And so it replaces publicWidgets. Why did we go through a refactoring? As I said, it was to be more similar to the syntax with OL, so that you don't have to remember and learn many different syntaxes across Odoo. We use modern JavaScript, so as I said, it's ES6 class and etc. We try to remove jQuery entirely. It's still not entirely removed, but close to. And we fix common issues, so listeners are now attached, for instance, on start of the interaction and not before that. So if you have asynchronous code that needs to run before, it will be taken into account, and so that will work better. Now, my goal here today is to demonstrate how you can write your interaction for a very basic snippet. So a snippet, if you're not accustomed to the website builder, is a block of code that you can drop onto your page, on your website page. And so we will have user interaction. So here it's a weather snippet, so you want to have an input where you can change the city to display the weather of another city. So that's user interaction. We have API calls so that I can show you how to handle asynchronous code within your interaction. And it works in edit mode, so that is very specific to the website builder. But yeah, I'll show you how. Now, to get started, you first have to extend the interaction class, obviously, and to set a selector, so that will be the root element that you're targeting on your page. Next, you have the lifecycle. So you shouldn't use the constructor of your class at all. You should use the setup if you want to do something that is already available in the page before the interaction is started. You should do that in the setup. If you have asynchronous code, so like in our case with the weather snippet, you want to call the API to get the weather data of your city, you will do that in the async will start method. And then you have the start method that comes obviously right after the will start, and the destroy method. So the only asynchronous method that you have within the lifecycle really is the will start. And as I said, the destroy method is most of the time you won't have to use it because it's already taken care of by built-in methods within the interaction. So that would be this.addListener, for instance, which adds a listener and removes it automatically. And there are a few more. I will show you a few, and then at the end of the talk, I'll give you the link to the documentation of the interaction. Now, the way to add really dynamic content into your page is with that property, dynamic content, which takes an object. That object takes a selector as the key. So here we're focusing weather location name, which is a class. And it takes another object withtout. So for those of you who already worked with OWL, you will be familiar with that syntax. So tout basically outputs a string onto your page where you want it to be output. You also have access to TATT directives, so to add attributes. Most of them are just, so you would give them a function to return a value, but in the cases of class and style, so TATT class, TATT style, you should return an object for obvious reason of class and style. Again, I will show you an example later. And if you want to add a listener, you have the ton directive. Again, if you're familiar with OWL, you're familiar with it. So onClick, for instance, and then the handler. And you also have a fourth directive, which is tComponent. And in that case, it really calls the OWL library and applies a component where you want it to be shown. And then obviously you should remember to add it to the registry in the public interactions category, so that it is available everywhere on your website and it can be called and work, basically. Now, something that's good to know, if you only add it in the public interaction registry, it won't work in the edit mode of the website. So if you're doing an interaction in another context than the website, it's fine. But if you're doing it in the context of the website, you probably want the interaction to also work in edit mode. And so you should also add it to the public interaction edit category. This is the syntax. If you don't change anything, if it's exactly the same interaction in public mode and in edit mode, then register the same interaction in both cases. Now, to add listeners, so obviously we will have an input in our snippet, so we want to listen to the change event of the input. And so you can listen to onChange and then call a handler. So one thing that you might notice is that you don't need to bind this because it's done automatically by the framework, Colibri. And you have a few modifiers available for those kinds of methods, so events. You have a .prevent that will prevent default in your handler. You have a .stop, stop propagation. You have dot capture, which will, well, capture the event. Dot once will only listen to it once and then remove it. And there are two other ones which are very niche, so most of the time you shouldn't have to use them. So we have a no update, but let me explain a bit about that before. So every time we go through the dynamic content, at the end of a handler, we update the content so that you can continue to listen, but with the dynamic content that has been changed. And so the content is automatically updated, so you don't have to think about it. But if for some very specific reasons you don't want the content to be updated at the end of your handler, then you can use .no update with the uppercase U to prevent that. And there is a last one, which is .with target. Again, it's very niche, but it's if you have a debounced handler or a throttled handler or some things like that, since the handler is passed to another function, the current target of your event is not available anymore. And in those cases, you can use with target, and the first parameter will remain the event, and the second parameter of your handler will be the current target that you should receive at that point. Now, in the onInputChange method, we want it to be asynchronous because it needs to call the API again to refresh everything. And so, let me go back to this slide. You see that in the willStart method, we just call await RPC, so we call the API just like that. But in this method, we need to call await this.waitFor and then call the RPC inside of that. Why is that? Well, as I said, it's to account for the life cycle of the interaction. So if your interaction has been destroyed between the moment that the event has been outputted and the moment that the asynchronous code is run, you don't have anything to run in the asynchronous code. So the wait for will be able to not do anything if the interaction is already destroyed by the point you reach the asynchronous code. And so that is one of the built-in methods that I was talking about inside the interaction class. Now, some more tips. We have the dynamic content, which is probably the most important property of your class. But there is also a dynamic selectors property in which you have access to things that are not inside the targeted element. So your root element is the one focused by your selector, but you might want to do some things to the body of your page or to the document or to the window, and those are in the dynamic selectors. And so you can call, instead of having a random selector like a class or whatever in your object, you can call _body, and it will target the body. And we have, so we have the body, we have _document, _window, and _root, which is the root element that you're targeting. If you want to add some elements to that dynamic selectors, you can. Obviously, it's just a property on the class, so you can override it as you want. So in this case, we target the body. We use TATT style, and this would be the syntax for it. So we return an object with the property, with the CSS property, here background color, and then some function or some value, some function that would return a value. So yeah, that's it, basically. So here with the root, if you have another attribute, so that only requires a value and not an object, like TATT required, then you just pass in a function and return a value. And if you want to insert a component, an OWL component into your interaction, you can call tComponent, and it will return, you should return an array with your component and the props inside the object. So yeah, that's it. So basically what I didn't explain it before, but what it will do in the dynamic content is be started when you reach the start method of your interaction. So everything in the dynamic content is handled when the method is started, and then it will go through the dynamic content every time there is an update that is done to the interaction. Now, if you want to, well, let me demonstrate a bit first. So here I go in edit mode, and I will drop my snippet. So I didn't go through explaining how you can build your snippet. If you're really interested in that part too, and you don't know yet, I will give you the link to my repo. It's already available in the pad, by the way, the Q&A pad. But yeah, so here the interaction starts in edit mode. If I hadn't registered it in the registry in the edit category, it wouldn't show up at all. Obviously, if I save the page, it's available. If I want to know the temperature somewhere else, like on the sun, you can see the temperature that has been fetched very quickly, because it's not actually an API call that I'm doing here, but you could, obviously. And so that works fine as an interaction. Now, if you want to extend the interaction in edit mode, because here I demonstrate that if you change in the input, we have the API call, etc. But probably if you're in edit mode, you don't want that typing anything in your input changes anything in your page when you're editing your page. And so you would create actually a mix-in for the class, kind of, with that syntax. And you would possibly, you have several solutions, but here I'm overriding the dynamic content and returning an empty object for the selector of the input, so that there will be nothing to listen to, because there is no event in edit mode. You should then add it to the edit registry, so update what you did if you only had one interaction. And you should add the mix-in, obviously, in your object. And don't forget to add it to the manifest too in assets inside builder iframe, like that, yeah. Basically what we do in our code base is suffix our interactions that are for edit mode with .edit.js, so that it's very easy to know what files are for what things, and etc. And basically that's it. I have a few annexes, so as I said, if you want the documentations, that's the first QR code. Again, as I said, all those links are in the pad too, in the Q&A pad. If you want access to the repository of this talk and a bit more, so with the snippets and how to work with options in the new builder, it's available in my repository. And if you want to see my slides again, it's there. Okay, everyone had time to take what they wanted? Cool. And now we can go to the Q&A session. Thank you.
So we have a question. How are interactions unit and integration tested?
Sorry?
How are interactions units tested and integration tested?
Okay, so we have some unit tests available for, like, you can use the Hoot unit test framework to test your interactions. We have some utilitarian methods, functions available with the Hoot that take the interactions, and yeah, it's a bit outside of the scope of this presentation to go into details of how it works, but it is available. There are a bunch of utilitarian methods that are available to test it with Hoot.
Why use mixins for edit mode and not extend the class?
Because so we need to use a mixin because your interaction might be well, we have the public interaction and the edit interaction, and then the public interaction might be extended by another interaction somewhere. And so, like in another module, or if you do your own module and you want to extend your class, your interaction. And so if we only extended the base interaction, well, that wouldn't work. But with a mix-in, that makes it possible to register your own custom interaction with the edit interaction, and you don't have to rework everything that is already working if you only need to extend the base interaction.
Do you have tools or tips to help migrate our custom public widget code towards interactions?
Honestly, so from what we did with the migration of the code, the refactoring of the code, it mostly wasn't a very big issue to go from public widgets to interactions. So do I have any tips other than what I demonstrated and what you will find in the documentation? Because the documentations, I didn't say it, but the documentation is focused on how to go from public widgets to interaction. So you might find a lot of answers in that documentation if you're looking for them.
I have a long question here. So does it make sense to implement a destroy method, since most of the time destruction will happen when the user navigates away and the whole interaction is garbage collected? Example, meaning, if I add an event listener, should I take care of removing it, knowing that in any case everything will be thrown away, or navigating away? Well,
in public mode, most of the time your interaction indeed will be destroyed only when the public user navigates away. But if you're doing an interaction in the website, when you go to edit mode, your interaction is destroyed because we need to restart the edit mode interaction. So it's destroyed at that point, and then if you do some things with the options in your edit mode, your interaction will be destroyed every time you update an option and restart it every time you update an option. So you should have a destroy method, but as I said, most of the time you probably don't need to actually write your destroy method because it can be handled by the available utilitarian method that are built in the interaction general class.
Will the CSS selector be the only factor to initialize this JS code? No need to precise an XML template?
No, so the XML template will be for your snippet. If you want a snippet for your website, you'll need to create your template, your XML template for the snippet. But the interaction really is just JavaScript that is injected into your page. And so the selector is enough to know if it's available in the page. We create an instance of the class of the interaction. And so that's it. You just need the selector.
So the last question is this strategy good with search engines, Google, for example?
I mean, it's basically JavaScript. So if you're concerned about JavaScript and SEO, I mean, don't use JavaScript at all, but normally it shouldn't cause any issue. I mean, it's the web nowadays, so there is JavaScript everywhere, and Google is aware of that.
Thank you.